Share Beirut presents Jackson Ellers.
No problem. Testing. It's not playing. No. The sound for iTunes. Okay, can everybody hear me? I don't know, this is a huge sort of cavernous space, and how's the sound? Everyone can hear me? Tell me, can everybody hear me? All right, cool. I'm here to represent a really sort of exciting venture in the Arab world. It's called Radio Beirut. How many here have heard of Radio Beirut? Fantastic. Well, I want to give you a little bit more information about what Radio Beirut represents and why we feel like everybody here is truly a stakeholder in this really innovative new web venture that we've sort of embarked on. Before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about myself, just to give you some background as to how I've gotten involved in Radio Beirut, and then I'm going to tell you more about Radio Beirut, and I want to sort of open it up and we can have a discussion. I'm primarily a music journalist and a filmmaker, but I also have been producing events for a number of years, and I've been in Lebanon since 2006. I had, just to back it up, so that I have a background in music and music production. I had a company in Los Angeles called Working Class Productions, and we produced some really incredible events between 1994, 95, and 2000. A lot of the heroes in the jazz world I got to work with, a lot of really amazing, who are now big turntablists, neo-soul singers, hip-hop artists, Cut Chemist, DJ Shadow, Gil Scott-Heron. These are some of the people that I had the fortune to work with during that time period. Around the end of the 90s, there was an incredible activist impulse in the United States that was centered around what became a really significant event in 1999, the WTO protests. At that time, a new sort of online media venture launched called the Independent Media Center. And how many in this room know what the Independent Media Center is? Has anybody heard of it? All right, that's a shame, but essentially the Independent Media Center was an activist media portal that allowed people to tell their own stories and to tell their own news. And it dovetailed with a lot of the work that I was doing, because in the United States, a lot of the underground music culture was connected to activist media. That then sort of steamrolled into, now you have on CNN, for example, you've got iReport, which was essentially what the IMC was trying to do back in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I was involved in helping to set that up. So activist media has been a part of my background. Radio has also been a part of my background for the last 20 years. So when I came in here in 2006, I didn't expect to turn into a war reporter. I didn't expect to be doing the kind of reporting that I ended up doing. Harib Tammuz, 2006, the war broke out, and I was exposed to aspects of Lebanon and Lebanese media culture that kind of gave me a wake-up call as to what was out here in the landscape in Lebanon and indeed in the Arab world. Fast forwarding, essentially, I started to concentrate more on the cultural intersections of the art and music scene in Lebanon and the intersections of politics. Because I felt like that was a prism that could get me into culture in Lebanon and in the region that would give my reporting or the things that I was filming or the things that I was archiving more impact in the long run. Because indeed, like, it's a way for you to understand through musicians and through artists how they've arrived at their opinions and how their opinions affect the art and the music that they make. So for me, it was a very important learning experience to see and to sort of throw away all of the background information and material that I had gathered in my events production and the fact that I had sort of spent the last 20 years documenting independent music culture. When I came to Lebanon, it was sort of starting at scratch to see exactly what was happening here. And it was through that period from 2006 until this year that I was able to really create and amass a big body of work, of interviews, of getting to know musicians and artists in ways that I might not have done had I stuck to sort of political reporting, which is anyone that's spent time in Lebanon and Beirut knows there's a saturation of news reporting that happens here. And so the musical side, the artistic side sometimes suffers in that process. Well, in 2010, I had made a friend who was part of the mine clearance teams in southern Lebanon, who approached me one day and said, you know, I really want to do this thing, and what do you think of it? I don't know, there's no real precedent here, but I really want to do something, and I've been thinking about it for 5 years, and here it is. And he described me what ultimately became Radio Beirut. Slowly but surely, his name is Jihad Samhat. He's not here, but I'd like to acknowledge that this is a man that had a vision, and he started to recruit people that he knew that had certain skill sets, whether they be in multimedia production or in public relations, if you want to call it that, or in sort of activist circles and media circles. And slowly but surely, a team came around this process that went into the formation of what is now Radio Beirut. Radio Beirut essentially, let me sort of advance this. Let me, hold on one second, sorry. Radio Beirut is essentially the first internet cafe performance space in the Arab world. It's a 24/7 radio station that, as it stands now, we're in a period, because we've launched just 2 months ago, we're in a period that we're calling the fiche technique, or the sound check. It's a means of testing this process because, as I said, there really isn't any blueprint. There are other 24/7 radio stations around the world, clearly. And some of the ones that we liked, such as Dub Lab in Los Angeles or We Funk Radio in Montreal, there's so many. They still weren't necessarily anchored out of a physical space. And so we were entering into new territory, and we didn't know how to predict, and still don't know how to predict how this is going to turn out. But in that process, an amazing sort of synergy occurred in which people from all different backgrounds started to see the possibility of having a 24/7 radio station that had a physical space that would allow us to bring musicians, artists from the community into the space to push themselves artistically, and as they're doing what they're doing on stage, streaming what they're doing live to the public, recording that process, thinking about how we would rebroadcast that material, creating an archive of what's going on. So it's been shaping up into this thing that I think has massive potential to really expose, not just, here, another thing that's happening in the last 2 months as this has been open. One of the barriers, obviously, of doing anything internet in Lebanon is the archaic internet system that exists here. But I'm finding, not just with Radio Beirut, but with a lot of other internet startups in Lebanon, that if the will is there, you can find ways to deal with these technological difficulties. One of the ways that we've been able to deal with this is in the process of, sort of designing how this will work. We, acknowledging that electricity cuts happen all the time here, we're like, how can we do this so that if everything goes wrong in the country, that we still have a stream? So we decided, we did a bunch of research about what countries we could host our content on, and that would allow us to have protection, seeing things like WikiLeaks and other organizations being attacked by international bodies. We found that Iceland was the best place for us to put a server, and we have now uploaded all of our digital content thus far onto a server in Iceland, and we're streaming 24/7 off of a cloud now. That was an initial way to start talking about some of the technological difficulties that we're dealing with. As well, when we stream live out of Radio Beirut, we're creating a data stream on the user end that is a low enough rate, sample rate, that people, even in Lebanon, can stream what's going on. And we're finding that, let's say, if our stream is, say, 350 dedicated listeners, that 200 or 250 are actually in Lebanon. So something strange started to come into our heads about, well, we're an internet radio station. We haven't launched our official site. We're on a beta testing site. We haven't done really that much outreach because we're trying to do it in a very homegrown way. And yet most of our listeners are local. So it's turning out that Radio Beirut is a local internet radio station. And that changes also the dynamic that we have with the artists, with the people who are listening. And now I'd like to just really quickly talk about like the structure. It's really the way it evolved. Essentially, there's a sort of directorship that are the original investors and the development team that sort of guide everything. But then there's a programming board of 9 people that have come in that represent all of these incredibly diverse areas of let's say, media involvement, musical involvement and production, and news, for example. But one of the things that all 9 of the people that are involved, and all of the people that are involved in this process who have highly political takes on the situation in Lebanon, on the region, was that in Lebanon, with so much political complexity, the way that we decided we were going to get through this process and not have anyone politically hijack this process was to stick to music first and foremost. The track that really wasn't effectively played for you when I started this presentation is from a hip-hop crew from Syria. They're called Latlete. They're performing tonight at Metro Al Medina as part of Khat Thalith, which is a hip-hop compilation project. This is the kind of artistry that we are attracted to, that we want to give a platform to. But again, it's highly political. It's highly political content. But the idea is that this is a space where they need to be able to say and express everything that they need to. Why did we go to the internet? The internet doesn't have the same restrictions that it does in the terrestrial FM dial format in Lebanon. We found out in our research in thinking about doing it on the terrestrial platform that you had to have a representative from all 18 different sects on your board of directors. So that means that you would have to find 18 different elements of Lebanese society before you even did anything, before you invested money, before you and prove that this was, so the barriers that existed with the FM side of things aren't there with the internet side of things. Like, as it stands right now, in 2 months since we've opened, we've been able to contact other media organizations. To me, something like this, as with everything in the sort of share conference mold, is that we want to create like different stakeholders, media partners, people that see Radio Beirut is a resource for them. Because as it stands, in the next 2 months, we're actually creating the programming grid that will allow for it to function as a true radio station. So I say that now to everybody here because for those who live in Beirut, because we want to really anchor it from Beirut, if you have ideas for radio programs, if you have ideas for things that you think will draw interest into the thing, to whatever you're interested in, then we want to encourage you to go to radiobeirut.net, check on our info page. We're essentially opening this up for an application process that will allow for us to program based on the decisions of the ideas in a major sort of consensus-oriented way with the programming board. And that, in essence, is how we're going to fill this programming board out. We're also, with these media linkages, artonair.org in New York City is one of the ones that they saw us, they came to us like within a month of actually being online, and they decided, hey, well, you're doing something incredible, we'd like to have a discussion with you. Art on Air is based out of the PS1 school in Brooklyn that is essentially like an incredible art hub that has the Museum of Modern Art, the Contemporary Art Museum, and other major institutions involved in it. So with, in our fiche technique, in our sound technique, sort of our sound check period, we are creating an incredible amount of interest from people that we had no idea that this was going to happen with. What I'd like to sort of say in conclusion is that, as with Cher, and the reason that I have to give Cher a lot of credit for what they've done here and what they've done in Belgrade, could we have a round of applause for the Cher people, please? Please, yeah. They saw a vision in what we were doing, and they were like, you're perfect for what we're about, and we'd like, as is the case with all of the people that are involved in this is a platform for us to present to you. Now, I'm going to close it up. I guess I'm about out of time, but if you have questions, I'm here. If you want to know more, go to the site, radiobeirut.net. If you want to hear what we're doing on a daily basis, or check out our event schedule, wherever you are in the world, you'll be able to listen to what we put on our stage, or whatever DJs that we're playing on a nightly schedule. You'll be able to hear that. And as we get sort of the programming schedule filled out, we'll be doing live talk shows out of the cafe. It's going to be something that I think that you can participate in, and well, I'm inviting you to do so. So, yeah, I mean, does anyone have any questions about Radio Beirut? I mean, I've sort of, I'll say again?
What kind of programs are you looking for? Speech programs or just music?
Well, I think the idea is that the question is, what kind? Are we also doing talk shows? I mean, like sort of magazine form? Yes, these are the type of programs that we're considering. Again, we are really trying to focus the programming on arts and cultural segments, because that is, as I said, the lens that we can use to get into some of the really significant political aspects of the society without having a Hezb, a party, come and try to dominate that discussion. Are there any other questions about radiobeirut.net?
Is it streaming only, or do you have podcasts as well?
Podcasts, we've already created a big archive of interviews, and we're about to, in the next month and a half, like making all of these podcasts available online, on the site. Our official site launches at the end of October, early November.
One more thing, it's not a question. All TV stations are actually...
Speak up.
All TV stations are... Or TV stations are part of some sect. So you're the first one to actually try to be independent. The law is there that you have to have 18 people from different sects,
right?
But no one applies to this. So thank you.
He said essentially that pretty much all of the media in Lebanon is dominated by some sect or party or other, and he was just saying it's nice to have a media venture in Lebanon that's not being hijacked or controlled by that process. So I thank you. I appreciate that. It's true. It's true. You have a question, Sassim?
يعطيك العافية Jackson. I heard about music, but is there anything other than music? I don't know, interviews, reports,
As it stands right now, because
programs on radio that are not music related.
we're right now we're in a process of creating the platform that will allow for the other types of programs, talk shows, media analysis. I like one of the things that we're really keen on, because we want to, again, look at what's happening in the dialogue that's happening in the political context. We want to have a media critique program, a media analysis program. So that's one of the first things that we're going to launch on the magazine side, because it's a way of dealing with things through the words that are being written by others in the situation. We're good? Thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it. RadioBeirut.net. Check us out.